The crowds are following Jesus. And great leaders like to have great followers, a great number of followers. And they would usually try to whip up the crowds and tell them all the great things that can be achieved and that they'll receive through following them. How wonderful life will be. Politicians will often say this. If you vote for us, we'll give you this, that, and the other, and it will be really good when we're in power. And Jesus is being followed by a large crowd. It's not just his disciples or the 12 apostles. It's a large crowd. These are people who have heard about Jesus, heard about his miracles, heard about his preaching, heard about all the great works and the healings that he's been doing. And they're following because they want to, I suppose, experience this. They want to listen to him. Maybe they want healing, but they want to have an experience of all this. And Jesus, seeing them, does what we would not expect a great leader to do. Instead of drawing them in and saying the advantages of following him, he does the complete opposite. Instead of trying to gain more followers, it seems as if he's trying to whittle the number of followers he has down. And he tells them, if they're following me, if you want to be my disciples, if you want to follow me, you have to hate your father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, and your own life as well. Now, when he's saying hate, he's using a Hebrew idiom, a Hebrew way of speaking that we find a number of times used in the Old Testament. And it doesn't mean dislike intensely your father, mother, and etc. It's talking about love less. If you love me less than your father, mother, brother, son, daughter, then you cannot be my disciple. If you do not pick up your cross and follow me each day, you cannot be my disciple, is the other thing he said. And, we've got this nice cross here, and we've got this lovely cross at the top as well. And they're really lovely works of art. But they're very sanitized. So when we think about picking up our cross and following him, we've got our view of the cross is maybe not a true view of what it was like. But the people that Jesus was speaking to knew exactly what he was talking about. They didn't have this lovely picture before them. They had regularly, most weeks, the real thing. They saw crucifixion, the cross, up close and personal. They saw the brutality of it. They saw how people suffered, how their deaths took days, hours, days, and how awful it was. And here is Jesus saying, if you want to be a follower of mine, you have to pick up your cross and follow me. And they knew what that meant. When we hear about good causes, we're going to hear about a good cause after Mass, Mary's Meals. We will often get excited about following them and supporting them. So John Duffy's going to speak, and he's going to ask for your support. And with causes, often we'll say, yes, that's a really good cause. We should follow and support this. And we're quite prepared to stick our hands in our pockets, aren't we? We're quite prepared to stick our hands in our pockets, aren't we? Yes. And give money. And that's great. And that's, that's a wonderful thing to do. But then if they start asking us to do a little bit more than that, often we start going, oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I really want to do that. If they start asking us to exert ourselves a little, like standing on a street corner handing out leaflets, or going to meetings, or things like that, then we start thinking, I don't know if I really want to support it that much. Or, as John's doing, coming out to parishes and speaking about it, then we start saying, oh, in that case, I don't know if I really want to do that. And Jesus is basically letting people know ahead of time what it's going to cost to follow. If you want to follow me, it's going to cost. You have to put me above everyone else. You've got to put me above your husband or your wife. I have to be more important than your kids are. And for parents, that's a difficult thing. But Jesus is saying, I have to be more important than your kids are. I have to be more important than your parents, than your work colleagues. My opinion has to count more than their opinion. My desire has to count more than their desire. And often we don't want to put God's desire above theirs. Theirs often counts more. We're not willing to suffer or go through difficulties for the sake of the gospel. And Jesus is saying, if you're not willing to go through that, don't bother. You can't be my disciple. If they are more important to you than I am, you can't be my disciple. If you're not willing to suffer and go through a little bit of hardship, you can't be my disciple. When people are coming into the Catholic Church, those of you who've done that recently, this year, will know that we spoke to you and mentioned that normally before you become a Catholic, usually in a week or so beforehand, people start to have great doubts and things get really difficult before they actually get baptized. They have to go through a resistance period. And St. Athanasius, when he was preparing, I think it's St. Athanasius, when he was preparing people for baptism, he did exactly the same. Not the gospel, I think it was Jeremiah. In Jeremiah, the Lord says to Jeremiah, if you would seek to follow the Lord, prepare yourself for an ordeal. If you seek to follow the Lord, prepare yourself for an ordeal. St. Athanasius said it to those coming into the church as well. If you're going to become a Catholic, prepare yourself, because you're going to have difficulty, you're going to have resistance, you're going to have hardships. And he said, I'm telling you this so that when it happens, you're prepared. You won't be surprised. And folks, we need to know, because it's the truth, that there are hardships ahead. It's not going to get easier to be a Catholic. You know that. It's going to get more and more difficult. The media will become more and more negative towards us. They're already negative, and it will get worse. I'm sure there are laws that will start coming in to make it more and more difficult for us to function, as we're doing now. Your friends and your neighbors will become more and more antagonistic to your faith. I'm sure you experience that already in your work, in your neighborhood. You're experiencing that. It's not going to get easier. And you have to know that and be prepared. Are you prepared? Are you prepared to put up with that and still follow? Father Keith, you're being very negative. This is a very unpleasant thing to hear, all this negative, hard stuff. Father Keith, why are you telling us this? Well, to prepare you, yes. And it's interesting that this gospel that we're hearing, it's not just about Jesus speaking to us about following. He's not the sort of leader that leads from the back. We know that Jesus leads from the front, and therefore the things that he's asking us to do, he has already done for us. You cannot be my disciple unless you hate your father, mother, son, or daughter. Jesus left the joys of heaven, left complete union in heaven with the angels and the saints, with God the Father, and he came down to this place for you. He left everything and came to this place for you. Take up your cross. He did that for you. He died for you. He didn't love his life more than he loved you. He was willing to give up his life for you. He is not asking us to do stuff that he hasn't already done for you. The question is, will we do it for him?